are all, hello everyone, welcome, welcome. We are all lined up because this is the Nantucket Book Festival and the Nantucket Book Foundation. We are... Our mission began with trying to create a festival that would be free and open to all, and because of the talent and dedication of everyone here, and we're missing a few key people, this is how we have done this. In all of these years, we have had one full-time staffer. For the past 7 years, that has been our exceptional executive director, Maddie Julstrom, who will be leaving us at the end of this festival. And Maddie has been, as you can see, she has been at our center, she has been at our core, she's the captain of our little ship, she's been our ballast, she's been our anchor, she's been the wind beneath our sails. She is everything and more to all of us. So we are so thrilled to give Maddie her moment to take a bow and to let this light shine because she is exceptional. So thank you.
Running a nonprofit with big dreams and one employee is probably a bad idea. Unless you have an army of volunteers working just as hard behind the scenes. And so I thank the Nantucket Book Foundation Board of Directors, the committee members, and especially this weekend, the Festival Committee, for all the good they've brought to this island over the last 11 years. They are extraordinary people, and you can find their names on page 1 of your program. If you see them around the island this weekend, would you go up to them, please, and thank them, because they've done such a wonderful job. On the back cover of your program, you'll find our sponsors, and this is a remarkable list considering how difficult the last 2 years have been for our local businesses. And yet, when we told them that we were bringing back the festival, they jumped right back on board with their support. And for that, we are deeply grateful. Now, the donors are on the last 2 pages of your program, and I see so many of you out in the audience tonight. I'm so happy that I can thank you in person, because you are more than names on a list. You are the reason that we are celebrating our 10th anniversary tonight. And you mean the world to us. And finally, to my husband, Rich, and my daughters, Elizabeth and Megan, and my grandson, who's squawking Adam, who have had to put up with me for the past 7 years, and a lot more than that. Thank you most of all. You are my happy ending.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Bergman, and I'm the chair of the Nantucket Book Festival. And it's with tremendous, really otherworldly joy that I welcome you to the 10th Annual Nantucket Book Festival on behalf of our entire committee. And I have been wanting to say those words for 2 years. We are here together in this church, and it feels so fitting to say that being together with you is really nothing short of miraculous. Thank you for joining us tonight and at so many of our events throughout the weekend. It was great to see so many people in the Methodist Church today. I want to thank the Festival Committee for your hard work all year, our departing Executive Director, Maddie Jolstrom, and thanks to our sponsors and donors, including Jill Karp and Nantucket Island Resorts, the Nantucket Athenaeum, the Margaret Ritchie R. Battle Family Charitable Fund, Elizabeth and Michael Galvin, Robert and Mary and Robert Half, and special thanks to the Unitarian Meeting House where we are right now. Thank to all of you who are listed in our program and all of you who gave after our program went to press. Having so many festival events free and open to the public is critical to the success of this weekend, and that's how we nurture this really powerful community of informed readers. But putting on a festival of this size does require financial support, so if you've been thinking about donating to the festival, it's always a great time to do so. And the year-round work of the Book Foundation, both in the schools and at the festival, would not be possible if not for the loyalty of all of our festival goers and friends. And so I'd like to turn things over to our festival co-founder and president of the Nantucket Book Foundation, Mary Haft.
It takes courage to put yourself on the page. Our young writers did just that. Inspired by our visiting author, Elizabeth Acevedo, our essay competition explored issues and questions of identity, each essay bringing its own prism of discovery. This work with our island students is central to our mission, bringing authors into the classroom, putting their books in students' hands. This profound partnership with our teachers, librarians, and administrators to lift up the power of the written and spoken word is what is powerfully important to us. We believe in the power of words, the power of stories, to take us to places we can only imagine, to enter worlds that deepen our own humanity. Our young writers remind us of the strength of human connection. They remind us we belong to each other. We want to thank Stacy Edswald, head of the English department, who's been the champion and kind of guardian angel of this and really fosters our students and brings these essays. We literally wouldn't be able to do this without her. She's not with us tonight, but we really want to thank her. And we really want to thank all of the educators who dedicate themselves to our students. The work that is done within our schools is inspiring. Our gratitude has no end with our two judges. Reading specialist and educator, Sandy Mitchell, and educator and author, Jim Salzer, have been with us since our very beginnings. They have dedicated their time and talent to carefully making these choices. This award is inspired by the PEN/Faulkner Award for Fiction, which I have been with PEN/Faulkner for decades. It's one winner, 4 finalists. It's our motto kind of is first among equals. So tonight we are honoring all of our student writers. It is my great pleasure to introduce Sandy Mitchell and Jim Salzer.
Good evening. It has been an honor and a pleasure for Jim and me to read the essays entered each year for this Young Writer Award. What a privilege it is to hear the voices of so many young people and gain an understanding of their perspectives as they share of themselves through the written word. This year's essayists were asked to describe a significant element of background, an interest or a tale, and how it played a role in who they are today. And we are pleased to present the winners to you tonight. Our 4th finalist, entitled Vicks Vapor Rub, Cough Suppressant Topical Analgesic, written by graduating senior Marian Vasquez Cruz. Come on up. Congratulations, my dear. Stay right here. engaging essay examines the intersection of culture and medicine, in particular, the hesitancy of many Hispanic patients in seeking Western medical cures. Marianne shares, "My grandmother taught me that you could cure mostly anything with the things that hang around in your pantry and a big dollop of Vicks VapoRub." As a young child, however, Marianne liked going to the doctor. Her grandmother felt betrayed that I showed interest in listening to the doctors. Home remedies are tradition, individual pride and knowledge passed down for generations. Marianne has chosen to become a pharmacist and now works as a pharmaceutical intern, helping to build that bridge between cultures. Congratulations, Marianne, and thank you for your work.
All right. Thank you. It's been a tough year for students and teachers alike, and we're very proud of our young writers. Our third finalist is Cynefin in Orphic Scripturient, or The Jellyfish Author, wonderful title, by Goshi Gonzalez. Goshi? This essay is a vivid meditation on something many of us may feel, that we are different, that we are alien to this world and to those other humans around us. Goshi writes about that and also about what it is like to be wholly where we are meant to be. I find it in a pen. I find it on splintery docks, looking for those jellyfish I cherish. When I'm gazing at those of the sea I covet so, I feel my mask loosened. An original and powerful essay. Congratulations, Goshi. I have something for
you. Our second finalist is An Ode to Reading by 11th grader Sarah Swenson. She's a young champion. Congratulations. This is for you. I love her essay. She is a young champion of independent reading in schools, someone who appreciates those quiet pockets in the day when readers share in the companionship of silently reading side by side. Sarah writes, "Written stories improve your mental elasticity and felicity." In comparing the visual formats of television or movies to her beloved fiction, Sarah states, "Books are not by necessity mired in dialogue, penned friends pouring out narration so rich, my heart swells. Books are different. For a short time, I have magic." Congratulations, Sarah, and may you always find that magic.
Our first finalist is a poem, "We Are Sitting at the Table," written in both Bulgarian and English by 10th grader Anna Popnikolova. Anna actually was our winner last year, but of course we weren't here to celebrate, so congratulations on that too. We Are Sitting at the Table, a lyrical piece of writing. It's both a celebration of the rituals that keep culture alive and a look at the difficulties and complications of doing so. The incantation, "We are sitting at the table," keeps returning with subtle changes of meaning and context, set both on Nantucket and during a visit to Bulgaria. My mother is still reminding us to speak Bulgarian. Someday, this language may be all we have left. A beautiful piece of work. Congratulations on that. Very proud of you. Our winning essay this year, let's get Sonia up here, is the exquisite essay, I'm going to start crying, "The Bowl" by a graduating senior, Sonia Dar. Sometimes in our lives, an intense experience can transform the objects of daily life into symbols that embody, in an organic way, the emotions and realizations that we undergo. Sonia works this transubstantiation with the changing nuances of the words ripple and shard, imperfections originally in a bowl she made in ceramics that come to assume larger and more resonant meanings as her mother tragically is diagnosed with breast cancer. My treasured bowl was no longer functional, but I kept a shard to tuck away in my room, to remind myself that one can find beauty even when things go wrong. I like to think I always keep a shard of her with me. Very moving, about love and remembrance. Congratulations, Sonia.
Just to add that all of our student essays are available on our website, and we just honor the work of these young writers. And for all our wonderful authors who are with us tonight, you were once young writers finding your voice. So thank you for being with us for this moment.
That was just incredible. I think that people sometimes from the mainland have a tendency to look at a place like Nantucket, which is so far out to sea, as isolated, as homogenous, and you just hear the diversity of the perspectives and just those students who were just standing up here and their talent and their passion. On this island is far away, but it isn't isolated, and that is because of the power of words. There's a long tradition of gathering in spaces like this, on this island, to hear speakers that would change the world through their words. And now everybody here in this room throughout this weekend, you're part of that tradition, part of that history. And words connect Nantucket, this faraway island, to the larger world. Books have the power to transport us, to transform us, to change our perspective, to change our lives. This evening's celebration is titled Intimate Strangers, Connections Through the Power of Books. Azar Nafisi, who you will hear from tonight, says that when faraway people bond over a book, they become intimate strangers. We asked our featured writers tonight to speak from their different perspectives on this intriguing topic. So I'll be introducing them, and then they'll come up. The first writer we'll hear from tonight is Qian Julie Wang, a New York Times bestselling author and civil rights litigator. A graduate of Yale Law School and Swarthmore College, Qian Julie wrote Beautiful Country on her daily subway commute while making partner at a national firm. Previously a commercial litigator, she is now managing partner of Gottlieb & Wang LLP, a firm dedicated to advancing education, disability, and civil rights. Her writing has appeared in major publications such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, and The Cut. Please join me in welcoming Qian Julie.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here with you all. I want to thank everyone at the Book Foundation for having me. I want to especially thank Maddie, wherever you are, for repeatedly reminding me not to wear stilettos in Nantucket. A vice I wish I had heeded. I did not. When authors gather at a festival like this one or at book parties, we often start talking about how little we socialize, how much time we spend purely alone, and that conversation usually devolves into what weird artistic kids we were and how few friends we had. I really like this topic of conversation because while I'm also a weird artist, I'm also a very hot-headed, deeply competitive litigator, and I need to win at all things. And this is a topic I can win at. When this subject comes up, I say, You think you didn't have any friends? Growing up, my only friends were 5 bears, 1 giant dog, a spider, and a pig. This usually confuses people, and they look at me and they say, "Did you grow up in the wild?" And I say, "No, Brooklyn. Why do you ask?" Of course, I'm talking about the Berenstain Bears, Clifford the Big Red Dog, and Charlotte's Web. My friends were not only animals, they were completely fictional. You see, when I was 7 years old, my life changed overnight. I moved from North China to New York, and I found that I went from being the very spoiled child of 2 professors to an undocumented kid who went to school hungry every day and had racial slurs thrown at her on the street. There was one governing rule for this weird new life, and it was to avoid detection and deportation. I could not tell anyone the central truth of my identity and my life. And part of this required me to speak English perfectly, which was very difficult because I only knew one word, apple. For as long as I could not speak English, it was pretty obvious that I was an immigrant, and suspicions could arise about my immigration status. So I threw myself into the public library, and I taught myself English syllable by syllable. And as I did this, I realized that there was something else I was gaining in the library. You see, I had grown up ensconced in the safety of family and friends, and overnight they disappeared. They were halfway across the world, and I didn't know if I would ever see them again. But books gave me Clifford. Books gave me Charlotte and Wilbur. And those characters became my family and my friends. As I spent time in the library, I remembered what my father said to me often in China, and it was that stories are power. My father was a literature professor, and he grew up in a family of dissidents in China. His earliest memories, the fondest ones, are of him digging out banned books from America and England from under the floorboards and reading them by candlelight. So my father learned that stories are power from the words of Mark Twain and Ernest Hemingway, and I learned them from the Berenstain Bears. But my taste matured slowly. I started reading Sweet Valley High, Babysitter's Club. Even so, though, as I got older, this feeling never left me that I was only safe with fictional characters, that I was not acceptable in the human, real world. I could whisper to Elizabeth Wakefield that I was undocumented and not be afraid, but there was no one around me with whom I could share that intimate secret. This shame, the secret at the core of my identity stayed with me for 22 years, until 2016, when I finally became a naturalized citizen. And in that safety from deportation that I had dreamed of for all of my life, I was finally able to see outside of myself. And I started thinking, what other child is out there keeping company only with 5 bears, a spider, a pig, and a giant red dog? So I started writing my memoir. And in the process of writing that book, I had to dig up the little girl who ran and hid and lied in shame. I held her in front of me, And I brought her close into my chest, and for the first time, I hugged her and accepted her. And I realized one of the deepest connections I had longed for and did not recognize was the connection between me and myself, that acceptance within. But then I sent that book, that little girl, out in the world, and readers started coming to my events saying, I was undocumented and this was my story. I wasn't undocumented and this was my story. I learned early to hide this central part of myself because it was unacceptable in the real world. I learned early about friendship from Charlotte's Web. And in the course of touring the country for my book, I realized my father's words were so very right. Stories are power. But I would propose an addendum to that. Stories are power, and there is no story more powerful than the one that we are deeply terrified to tell. No story can better heal us and connect us and show us that that which we hold to divide us is the very thing that connects us all as human beings. And now when I think about my childhood, and please don't tell me my author friends this, I realize that little me has so many friends out there across this country and across this world, friends possibly that I may never get to meet. She is no longer keeping company with 5 bears, 1 big dog, a spider, and a pig. And as you spend this weekend enjoying all of the events and immersing yourself in the power of stories and words, I hope you remember that in the act of reading, the act of writing, the act of just being in spaces like this, you are giving a home to a long, lonely heart, and you are befriending a child who once thought herself friendless. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I introduce the next writer, I'd just like to remind everybody to please silence your cell phones if you haven't done that. We've had them for so long, you feel like you don't have to say it, but anyway. Mitchell S. Jackson is the winner of the 2021 Pulitzer Prize in Feature Writing and the 2021 National Magazine Award in Feature Writing. His debut novel, The Residue Years, received wide critical praise and won a Whiting Award and the Ernest J. Gaines Prize for Literary Excellence. His nonfiction book, Survival Math, Notes on an All-American Family, was published in 2019 and named a Best Book of the Year by 15 publications. Please join me in welcoming Mitchell.
I had to write mine down. Y'all lower your expectations. It'd be good. I first wanted to say thank you for this invitation, Mary for your hospitality, Maddie for being everywhere. The most amazing director that you can imagine. You all are very lucky to have had her for this long. I am very happy to be here my first time in Nantucket. I had to move to Arizona to come to Nantucket. Okay, so I agree about that conversation about being a child reader or bookish, often occurring in parties. And here we are at a book festival, and I am someone who didn't engage with books for about half my life. the first time that I can remember reading a book that I wasn't assigned to me in school, I was a 20-something-year-old prison inmate. All that to say, I didn't experience the wondrous connections possible through books until much later than most of my writing peers, maybe much later than most of you. I did, however, experience connection through words, did become closer to others through story. What I didn't realize then was how stories were related to value. What I now believe is that value is always a story. This island was founded by Bartholomew Gosnold, a brave European explorer. Or, my parents were parishioners at St. Francis and prayed right beside the Kennedys. Or, we own a place on the Cape or in the Hamptons because we're smarter, more savvy, more prudent. Or, I run Company X because my great-grandfather bootstrapped it from the ground up and our whole darn lineage is exceptional. Or, how dare they assert the significance of 1619? We're the only true Americans. Maybe you heard those stories when you were developing your worldviews. Maybe you hear them now or tell them. I'm not here to critique them, at least not this second. But what I do believe is that those are the kinds of stories that imbue humans' value. What I can say is that for most of my life, those were not the stories that indoctrinated my worldview. When I was a youngin', the stories that most enamored me were told often by men on the flip side of the American dream. Uncle Paul, who'd returned with a bankroll this big from cross-country pimping. Or my stepdad, who robbed a bank on a whim. Or my Uncle George, my beloved Uncle George, who shot somebody in Kansas for we still don't know why. To be fair, I also heard stories of my great-grandmother integrating Portland public schools. I heard stories of my family owning land in Alabama. I heard stories of my great-grandfather's entrepreneurship. But most of the men that I valued were gifted raconteurs. Their stories were full of rhetorical flourish and charm and invention. Because of their skill and the fact that my formative years were filled with their stories, I ascribed value to their lives. I saw them as people worthy of my love and respect. Here's a question for all the zeros in the bank vault. Who is unworthy of our love and respect and care? I'm happy to report that decades later, I'm still enthralled by a storyteller. Decades later, I'm proud to share that I'm even more in love with language, its rhythms and acoustic resonances, its ability to inform, entertain, explain, critique, reveal, expand, transform. In the here and now, I hold fast to the belief that by writing about the people like my mama and my daddy and my hustling out the muck uncles and cousins and others who have been coerced into a value less than a full human being, that I can forge connections between them and me, and with any luck, between them and you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, the last author we're going to hear from tonight, and don't forget there's plenty more, a day and a half left. So this is not the end, this is only the beginning, is Azar Nafisi. She's the critically acclaimed author of Reading Lolita in Tehran, a New York Times bestselling bestseller that's published in 23 languages. She's also known for her other works, including Things I've Been Silent About, Republic of Imagination, and That Other World, Nabokov and the Puzzle of Exile. She has held various teaching posts across the world. And please join me in welcoming Azar.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor, such a pleasure and privilege to be here tonight. One of my most favorite festivals, literary festivals of all time. So I thought, since this is a place where water can be turned into wine, I'll drink to you all. And I really drink. Actually, I could be drinking to so many things looking at you in this festival that I feel already very giddy. So, good. You know, I was thinking on the way to here that one of the best things about books is the connections they make. And they make these connections transcending the limitations that reality imposes on us. They take all the barriers away. When you come into a Republic of Imagination, a place like this, then all the barriers that nationality, language, race, gender, ethnicity, and religion put in front of us in real life are taken away from us. And so I was thinking also to talk to you about, if I'm asked how did I survive to this old age, I could tell you literally, and I'm not exaggerating, it has been by reading and writing. And I learned that from my father to begin with. At the age 3.5 or so, every night he would tell me a story, and he was very democratic in the way he told his stories. One night we would visit our epic poet Ferdowsi. The next night we traveled to France with The Little Prince. The next night to England with Alice, to Denmark with Little Match Girl, to Italy with Pinocchio, to United States with Charlotte's Web. So from that very early on, I realized that I can stay in my small room in Tehran and the whole world will come to me. That was my first connection with the real world. And that connection expanded as I grew up. At the age of 13, my parents decided I needed to become independent. And so they, like some other parents in Iran, sent me to England. And at that time, I learned how easy it is to lose everything that you physically call home. How easy it is to be suddenly deprived of those who love you and be thrown into a strange situation in a strange land. But from Iran, I learned to take with me the best that Iran had to offer. I took with me 3 books. 2 of them by our favorite classical poets, Hafiz and Rumi, and the 3rd was by this feminist writer, Forough Farrokhzad. And when I went to England, every night, well, it was quite cold over there, and at that time you had to put shillings in the, the heater. And if you sat too close to the heater, you would burn. If you sat too far, you would be cold, freeze to death. So what I would do, I would go under the blanket holding my hot water bottle in my hand. And I remember there was a book at that time coming out in England called How to Be an Alien. And it said, continental people have sex life, the British have the hot water bottle. So I don't know what the British have been doing since the hot water bottle has given its place to air conditioning and heating system has changed. But I learned to make England my home, and later America when I came here, through the kith and kin and relatives and friends I found in Jane Austen and George Eliot and Melville and Hawthorne and right now, the love of my life, apart from my husband, is James Baldwin. I mean, boy, he just goes to your heart and doesn't leave, does he? You know. So I learned to make my home through this imaginary world that I had already visited when I was so young at home. And then when I went back home to Iran, I discovered that home is not home anymore. Everything that I called home had changed. And a people had come to power whom I didn't know. And if you think it doesn't happen to you, it can happen to anyone. When you think it can't happen here, it has already happened. And so it is good to feel not completely at home. To be questioning not just the world, but to pose yourself as a question mark. And that is what I had to do. I had to pose myself as a question mark. And I had to live with a government. I mean, just to give you an example, the laws. Every totalitarian system, when they come to power, they attack three groups to begin with: women, minorities, and culture. This is without doubt anywhere in the world, including the totalitarian trends in this country. That is their first targets. And the first thing that this government did, they changed the family protection laws that gave women freedom at home and abroad, not abroad, at work. They lowered the age of marriage for females from what it was 18, they lowered it to 9. They made the veil compulsory. This was not religion anymore. It was the state making the veil compulsory. If you did not comply, you could be jailed, fined, and flogged 86 lashes. Right now, we have women in jail for refusing to wear the compulsory veil who have been condemned to 16 years in jail. They brought something that had never existed in the history of Iran, which was stoning people to death for what they called adultery and prostitution. So you could have multiple marriages for males. That was not prostitution. But if a man and a woman fall in love, then that needs to be punished. So under those, and of course censorship of everything, including our classical poets, existed. And as I just didn't know how to communicate to my students about that other world I had come from. And you know, when the Iranian people were deprived of the world, they connected to the world through its golden emissaries. Iranians created an underground sort of world running parallel to the one that they had every day. And in that underground world, we listened to forbidden music. We danced, because dancing was forbidden. We danced, we read the forbidden books, we watched the forbidden art, and refused and resisted the regime, not through violence, but through becoming more ourselves. And so when I came to United States, one of the things that struck me was the denigration of imagination and ideas, especially denigration of imagination and ideas through denigration of humanities and liberal arts in our education system, where students were encouraged to not take literature or philosophy or history. They were told that science and technology were where the money was at. Now, how could you have a democracy without liberal arts, I ask you? That is what China lacks. China doesn't lack scientists and engineers. They lack freedom of expression. That is what they lack, freedom of choice, and that is where liberal arts and humanities come to your aid. So, I remember Ray Bradbury saying, you don't have to kill people, to burn books to destroy a culture. All you have to do is to make people not read books. In this country, we don't torture and execute people. So many writers have been executed in Iran and in places like Iran. We don't execute writers, we don't torture them. We ban them, we burn books, we cancel them. But the threat to this country is what Saul Bellow called. He said that Stalin's violence was stark. You could see it. In this country, what threatens us is our sleeping consciousness and our atrophy of feeling. And that is what literature resists. Literature resists indifference. Literature is in pursuit of truth. That is why literature becomes so threatening to totalitarian mindsets. Because as Baldwin, Atwood, Grossman have been saying, they are witnesses to truth. And the first thing a totalitarian mindset does is bring the lie. This is what is so dangerous in the country today, lies. And literature brings the truth. And once you know the truth, as readers, you become responsible. Being silent while knowing the truth is being complicit. So I'm now here in the United States of America, and I still connect through stories and through books. And I wanted to end by, at the juncture that we live in, I wanted to end by quoting from a book, not quoting, but talking about one character in a book. The character's name is Huckleberry Finn, and one evening he's sitting there. He has been told that if there is a runaway slave and he does not report him, he will go directly to hell. And he believes it. He believes that he will go to hell. Now, he sits there and thinks about it, and he decides to write a letter to Miss Watson, tell him then that your runaway slave is here. And then he says, I wrote that letter, and then I started thinking, imagining. And he kept bringing the moments that he imagined with Jim. That is the whole idea of literature, imagining the other. Literature is based on two things, curiosity and empathy. Curiosity is that almost sensual urge to know, to want to come out of your own skin and go under someone else's skin. Both great science and great literature are curious about the world and about others. Literature is all about the other. And empathy is when you are able to put yourself, it's that shock of recognition that we are not all different, but we are all sharing the same. We as human beings share the best and the worst. That is curiosity. And Huck has both of them towards Jim. He discovers that this runaway slave is closer to him in his heart. And Twain says this is a book about a sound heart, the conflict between a sound heart and a depraved conscience, in which the heart wins. In his heart, he feels Jim. In his heart, Jim is the person that is closest to him. So he says, I thought about all of that, and I decided, all right then, I'll go to hell. And I tore that piece of paper. I want to ask us, myself included today, how many of us today are prepared to go to hell, but do the right thing? And I also want to end with slogans. I hate slogans, but my recent book, I ended it with a slogan. Readers, this is so important. We cannot it is not just writers whose rights are being taken away from them. Readers have to feel responsible. And they have to defend the books. They have to defend their spaces where the books flourish. So my slogan is, readers of the world, unite. Thank you.
You have your marching orders. That's it. We're done. Thank you all for a fabulous evening.